Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention?
Oh, this is gonna be fun. We can stay up late, swapping manly stories, and in the morning, I'm making waffles.
Because people have got to know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir,
go ahead.
I can see Russia from my house.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
We drink Fox water bottles.
I don't know. A proof is a proof. What kind of a proof? It's a proof.
Here come the flag. Champions. 1989. Canadians win the Stanley Cup. El Presidente, El Perfecto.
Sidney Crosby, the golden goal! And the Blue Jays have repeated as World Series champions. Touch 'em all, Joe. You'll never hit a bigger home run in your life.
Welcome to the Edge of Tomfoolery.
I have these notes, so I gotta say I'm just fired up to be here today. Pretty cool. Wow!
Hey, what's going on, people? My name is Bruce Mackey, and this is the Edge of Tomfoolery. Joining me back again tonight is our co-host from the Palatial Studios in Belleville, Mr. Robert Morris. Bobby, how are you?
Hey, Bruce. Good. How about yourself?
I'm good. And joining us again from the Stampederland in Calgary, Mr. Stephen Jonathan Height. How are you, buddy?
I am doing excellent, Bruce. I'm so excited to be here with you. Let me tell you.
Are you sporting? What are you sporting there? What do you get on there? You got a stamp?
I got my stamp shirt on, so I'm a little worried about them. I don't know what's going on with our CFL, our very Canadian league right now. I'm worried that we're going to do a lot of wrestling in the sport coming up here. So I've just got some nerves about it. So I'm trying to help pump the team up here. We got to get ready.
Attaboy.
And first of all, let me say thanks to your wife for cleaning up the backdrop in your room there. It's quite clean this week, eh? Like she straightened it up when you were away and had it all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not so much of a set designer, Bruce, and so yours looks pretty good there, and mine could use a bit of work. So she said when I was away that she would look after it. So
The staging looks pretty good, Steve.
thanks, Bobby. Thank you.
Well, here at the Edge, we talk about sports, we talk about music, and we talk about politics and all kinds of tomfoolery. And tonight we are pretty excited to have on the show a former first-round draft pick of the Toronto Maple Leafs, the first captain of the Ottawa Senators, my friend, Mr. Laurie Boschman. Welcome to the show, Laurie.
Thanks very much, Bruce. Great to be with you, Bob and Steve.
There we go. And listen, in your honor tonight, I am wearing
a
New Jersey Devils, talking about faith and wearing a Devils shirt. Talking about New Jersey Devils, and it's a Laurie Boschman Devils jersey. So
there we go.
Yeah.
It's a class.
Bruce, I don't know how you can call yourself a Christian and wear the Devils jersey. I don't know.
I know. Well, how can one play for the Devils? And but let's get into it first a bit. Tell us a bit about yourself. You're a Western boy, so you're born in Saskatchewan. What part of Saskatchewan are you born in?
I am, Bruce. I was born in Kerrobert, Saskatchewan, which is about 2 hours west of Saskatoon. My folks lived in a town called Major, Saskatchewan. If you were to Google that, there's under 100 people that live in Major, Saskatchewan, and we lived there for a number of years. We moved to another small community called Bengoff, and then when I was 9 years old, my parents moved east, went to Brandon, Manitoba, and that's really where I got my sort of formal training, if you would, in hockey and a lot of other sports, but sort of gravitated to hockey, and then was fortunate to play junior with the Brandon Wheat Kings.
So, and let's talk about your family. You had a brother who a lot of people may not know had some connection, actually played for the Belleville Bulls, did he not?
Yeah, that's right. I think it was, is it Jerry Mavity? Is that, I know Mavity.
Larry Mavity. Yeah, he passed away last year. Yeah.
That's right. Larry Mavity was the coach at the time. He played, he actually switched leagues. My brother Patty was playing in the West, and he switched over to the East when I was playing for the Leafs. And I think that's the time when Marty McSorley actually was there in Belleville. And they played together. And then Pat, his hockey career kind of ended after junior, and he went married a girl. He lived at my house. I was playing for the Jets at the time, and he lived at my house all through his school years. He got his degree and met a girl while he was at school, Audrey Klippenstein, and they moved out west, and he's been a school teacher ever since out west. They have two kids, and
Please tell me she kept her maiden name, because that sounds awesome. I love it.
She did not.
Oh,
She
man.
did not.
And did you charge him rent at least when he?
I did not. No, but one
Oh.
of the things that used to happen on a regular basis is I was a single person, and so what I did was, I said, "Listen, Pat, you can use my vehicle and stuff," and I'd fill it up with gas, and I'd fill the fridge up with food. And so, back then sometimes we used to go on a week to 10-day road trips out west, and so that was not uncommon. We used to do that at least twice a year. And so the big problem is when I come back, I'd get a ride back with someone here, or I'd take a taxi back to my place. And the next morning I would, go to practice, and my car was on fumes. And not only that, is sometimes we'd go home a little later. There was nothing left in the fridge. There wasn't even milk or cereal I could have. So the only thing I asked my brother is, I said, "Pat, listen," because, back in the days, well, even today, you get fined if you're late.
Yeah.
And so I'd be going, "Oh, Lord, help me get to practice so that the car doesn't run out of gas." And, it was really literally on fumes. The gas gauge was always on E or past E. And so the only two things that I asked him to do is make sure there's milk. There's at least a bag of milk, or or a carton of milk, and a little bit of cereal left. That's all I ask. Because then I'll, when I have time the next day, I'll go in the store and I'll fill everything.
You're a good brother. You're a good brother. And did he oblige you? And did he do that for you?
After I asked him to do that, yeah.
Oh, that's good. So let's talk about, you were drafted ninth overall, first round, had a pretty successful junior career. You lost out in the Memorial Cup when we were doing the search to the Peterborough Petes. Do you hold any malice towards the Peterborough Petes?
No, of course not. No,
because I still do. So
yeah.
It's okay if you do. It's good if you do, actually. Yeah.
It's healthy if you do. No.
Yeah. No. We lost in overtime. A guy by the name of Bob Atwell scored the winning goal, but they had a few NHLers: Larry Murphy, Tim Trimper. I think those were the two most sort of notable players from that particular team.
Who was their coach back then?
It was Gary Green. Actually,
Okay.
Gary Green was coach. Then the next year he went to Washington to coach the Capitals, and he was the youngest NHL coach at the time.
Wow.
When he coached the Capitals. Yeah.
So then you were drafted by the Leafs, and let's talk about that for a bit. You went to the Toronto, weren't a believer, and then tell us how you came to faith in that process when you got to Toronto.
Yeah, sure. So you know what? Part of the thing for me was as a kid growing up, I considered myself a Christian. I was a good kid. We went to church on a regular basis, and I thought, based on going to church, and we went to the Catholic Church, and I used to go to confession regularly when I lived at home, and I thought, well, look, I'm a church going person. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. I'm a good person. I thought I never killed anyone. I'm not as bad as Bruce Mackey or or Steve Height, or something, something like this. So that's my kind of thinking. But and I got to Toronto. I thought as a youngster, as a 19-year-old, if I really never thought that I'd make it to the National Hockey League. I think everybody who plays hockey, who's serious about it, who has a favorite team or favorite players, you kind of, fantasize about what that would be like. And that's, what it was like for me. But then when I got to be 17 years old, I played junior hockey, and the thought occurred to me that it might be a possibility, because we had a really strong junior team, and I played with Brian Propp and Ray Ellison, who ended up having, pretty solid NHL careers. And so long and short of it was, I started to think that, hey, this might become a reality. And then in 1979, I got drafted by the Leafs and went to Toronto. And of course, getting drafted is one thing, making the team is the other thing. Made the team, and I got to play with guys I watched on TV, Darryl Sittler, Ronnie Ellis, Borja Selming, Tiger Williams. And so, for me, it was a dream come true to be able to do this. And, as a kid, when I was sitting there, in my bed at night and, collecting hockey cards and, SO hockey stamps for my stamp book and all those kinds of things, I thought that if I ever made it to the National Hockey League, that my life would be, at the apex. I would have everything that life had to offer. And now here I was. I made the team. I was playing with these guys. I was traveling around. I was going to the Forum in Montreal, the old Garden in Boston. and I was doing everything that I had dreamed of doing, and yet I can't, explain to you, Bruce, other than to say that I wasn't happy. Everything was going well. I was playing regularly. I was playing with John Anderson and Rocky Saganuk. They called us the kid line, after that primo line back in Toronto. And so the biggest difference, though, is I sat next to a guy on my team by the name of Ron Ellis. And Ron Ellis was, he was married with 2 kids. He was 35 years old. I was 19. I was single. And I used to sit next to him and think, man, this guy is so old. He's a fossil, and then I realized, in my early 20s and stuff, like 35 is not that old. But as a 19-year-old, you thought, wow, he's old. Yeah. But I saw something in Ron that was different. I saw something in him that I didn't have, and that was peace. No matter through the ups and downs of hockey, whether he was scoring goals or whether we were winning or whether we were losing, he was always the same. And I was really attracted to that. And I kept asking Ron questions because I sat right next to him. And then one day I came in early, Bruce, and I said to him, Ronnie, listen, I've been watching you for a few months. And I said, there's something different about you. And I said, oh, Ron, not weird, but there's something different, good. And I said, what is it that makes you tick? And he said something as a 19-year-old I'd never heard before. He said, Laurie, he said, I'm a born again Christian. He said, I try and use the Bible as a guide for my life. Well, as a 19-year-old kid growing up out West, I never even heard that terminology before as a born again Christian, because like I said, as a, as a good Catholic kid, I thought, I'm a Christian too. I'm just not as religious as Ronnie. And then I realized after talking to Ronnie and after Hockey Ministries, who I worked for the past 27, 28 years, I realized that I really didn't know what it meant to be a Christian, because I didn't really know, well, not really, I didn't know anything that was in the scriptures. I just thought, because I'm a good person and because I believe in God, and I believe in Jesus, therefore I'm a Christian. And then I went to chapel programs and found that, my sins separated me from God. And it was something that God, through his Holy Spirit, was really drawing me to him. And so I made a decision for Christ during that first year. And he, as the scripture said, he took my heart of stone and turned it into a heart of flesh, and started that process where he starts to change our lives.
That's very, very cool. And so we're going to talk about that a bit. Now, Ron Ellis's son actually lives in Belleville, RJ. RJ tells the story that Ryan Sittler would get to come in. You don't have the COVID, do you? I see you coughing there. Are you good?
I don't. No, I'm
good.
I'm good. I've got too many grandkids and they're coughing in my face and stuff. So
there you go.
Yeah.
You might have to get a nasal swab or something. You're good. So RJ tells the story that he and Ryan Sittler and a few of the boys used to play tape ball in the dressing room, and their dads would be out having a practice, and then they'd be playing in the dressing room. And then as guys would come off the ice, they said Laurie was like closer to our age, so he would come off the ice and play tape ball with us.
Sure.
And one time they shot and hit Punch Imlach, hit him in the head, apparently with a tape ball, and they got banned from the dressing room. Any recollection of that at all?
Well, no, but you know what? There were kids. Obviously, the guys who had kids, they brought them in the dressing room, and of course, I was 19 years old, and you're right. I was more closer to those kids' age than I was maybe to Ronnie Ellis, but no, there's lots of stories about our time with Punch Imlach and stuff. I don't recall that, but there were lots of situations in Toronto where, Punch took the ping pong table away, and all kinds of old school things that that he tried to do back in the 60s when when the Leafs last won the cup in 67, and in the late 70s, and of course
you want to repeat that again? When did the Leafs last win the cup?
Yeah, that's a long time ago, Bruce.
Oh yes, it was.
It's longer than you've been on the earth, Bruce. Okay, just to let you know. Okay,
I know. I just want to make sure everyone knows that, right? I want to make sure everyone knows that.
Bob, I don't know where you go, but you're probably a Leaf fan being close to Belleville or something, eh?
Oh yeah, I was in grade 3 when they won that cup.
Okay. Oh, that's great.
So let's talk about, speaking of old things and back in the day, let's talk about the owner of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So when we go on Wikipedia, according to your Wikipedia, I don't know if you've ever been on there, And if you actually want us to add anything or do anything, Stevie's your guy. He'll hook you up.
I got you. I can change whatever you want changed on there. Let me know. I like the interwebs.
Okay.
So it said that you were traded. Basically, Harold Ballard found out you were a believer and didn't like that you become a born again Christian, and he thought you'd become too soft. So he traded you. That pretty accurate?
Well, I mean, it kind of touches on sort of a little bit of the story, and probably I don't have enough time because you never told me prior to being on here how long we have, because I can talk a long time. I don't know if you knew that.
I know you, Laurie. Take as long as you want. We're good.
But no, some of the things that happened is I had a pretty good first year. I played most of my games during the Leafs, and I don't know, I haven't looked at my stats in a long time. My second year, of course, I'd become a Christian in March of 1980. So at the end of my first year. And so my life started to change in a good way. And so I came back and I played with many of those same individuals I mentioned earlier. And of course, internally, I didn't do some of the things that I used to do as a first year player. And so, of course, the guys would talk and they tease me. And of course, that got to the coaches and of course up the chain to the general manager, to Punch Imlach and Harold Ballard. And so they said, I don't know exactly how it happened, but they knew that Boschman had found religion, as they sort of phrased it. And so my second year, I got mononucleosis. I got in a fight with what turned out to be one of my assistant coaches in New Jersey, Robbie Fatorik. I gave him an uppercut, chipped his tooth in Quebec City, and the next day that night we flew back to Toronto, and the doctor in Quebec City had stitched my index finger up right at the knuckle. But what had happened is the next day I go into the locker room, and my hand and part of my forearm was swollen up. It had been like I had been bitten by something that had really swollen up. And long and short of it is, I got blood poisoning. I was out for 3 weeks, and I was in the hospital on an IV drip. He should have gave me a tetanus shot, apparently. I mean, what does a 19-year-old kid know about fighting, and the fact that you chip someone's tooth, and I guess your mouth is very, there's lots of bacteria, and that's exactly what happened. So my second year, I missed like 27 games or something. So my third year, I'm a first round pick, 9th overall. The expectations were that I was going to come out and, have a sort of a standout year. And I came out and really wasn't playing well. And as would have it, as it worked out, we were playing in New York against the Rangers one night, and Harold Ballard was being interviewed by a gentleman by the name of Dick Beddoes. Dick Beddoes used to be the TV guy for CHCH in Hamilton. And of course, the Leafs were on TV every Wednesday and Saturday night. And so they were interviewing him, and they talked about, I was playing that night. So I didn't hear about this till actually the next day. And Harold Ballard what had happened was we played the Rangers that night. Ballard went on an interview, and after the game we lost, and we chartered home after the game and back to Toronto. And so it's like 2 a.m, and we're practicing the next day. So the next day I go into practice, and I'm usually there early. Daryl Sittler comes in and says, "Bosch, come here. Did you hear what happened last night?" And I said, "No. Is everything all right with Wendy and the kids?" And he said, "Yeah." And when Daryl got home at 2 a.m, his late wife Wendy had taped the game, and on the VHS, this is going back, right, guys? VHS tape.
VHS. I've got one right here, actually.
He said it wasn't a beta; it was VHS. It was the next model, right? And Wendy said, "Daryl, turn on the VCR." Daryl turned on the VCR, and Dick Beddoes was interviewing Harold Ballard. And basically, what happened was Harold Ballard had said that, we're concerned with Boschman. He's not playing well, and it's because of his religion. And we're either going to trade him or send him to the minors because he's got too much religion. So that's what Daryl said to me. And Daryl said, that's what Ballard said. So he said, just get ready after practice, because the media is going to come after you and ask you, what your comments are. And of course, there's always lots of media down at Maple Leaf Gardens. And of course, even more so today with the internet and sports channels, which weren't around back then, but there was always lots of media following the Leafs, both radio and TV. And of course, they all wanted to know what my comments were. And basically what I said I said, I thought it was Mr. Ballard's ignorance towards Christianity that he'd make a statement like that. And so what happened from there, Bruce, that was my third year in the league. I was 21 years old. I actually wasn't 21 yet. I was still 20 years old, and I was new in my faith. And there was a whole bunch of debate in the media about what it means to be a born again Christian. Can a born again Christian fight? Can you be aggressive? What's wrong with Boschman? Is religion a problem? I had people writing into me, lots of people writing into me saying, some very positive things. And I had some people writing into me saying, you can't be a Christian because you're playing hockey on a Sunday and you shouldn't be, so I got the full gamut, right? So fortunately for me, I had a guy by the name of, like Ron Ellis had retired now, but Mel Stevens up at Teen Ranch was a good friend of mine, and he was helping me disciple me, help me to understand what it meant to be a Christian, what the Bible really had to say, and encouraged me to look into the Bible for myself. And so I would do that, and I would ask him lots of questions. And in fact, it got so bad in Toronto that Mike Nicolak was now the coach, and Jerry McNamara was the general manager. Yeah. And Mike Nicolak was the coach with Freddie Shiro back in the early 70s when the Flyers won their cups in, I think, 74, 75. And it got so bad that after practice one day, Mike Nicolak came to me and said, Bosch, we'd like you to go see, and I can't remember the doctor's name at the Wesleyan Hospital, the one that was close to downtown there. I think that's the Wesleyan. He said, we want you to go see, Dr. So-and-so. He's our psychiatrist. Well, the Leafs didn't have a psychiatrist. So anyways, I go after practice, 1 o'clock, I go see Dr. So-and-so, and I met with him, and I sat in his office for about an hour. 2 days later, Mike Nicolak, the coach of the Leafs, calls my parents, called my dad at his work and said, Mr. Boschman, Mike Nicolak here with the Leafs. We sent Laurie on Wednesday to see Dr. So-and-so as a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist said he's brainwashed. Is there anything you can do to help your son? And so my mom and dad broke that news to me, not the coach of the Leafs or anything. That night they called me in tears because I come from a family a Catholic family that thought just like I did. They were Christians because they were good people. They go to church and believe in God. And so anyways, it became untenable for me to in Toronto, and then I asked to be traded, and then I got traded to Edmonton, and played there for parts of 2 years, and then went to Winnipeg for 7, where my career really took off.
Well,
and interesting guys, which is kind of unusual. John Ferguson Senior, not Junior, because John Ferguson Jr. Was the GM of the Leafs for a time,
and a good GM too.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought he did a pretty good job. But John Ferguson Senior picked me up in Winnipeg. GMs don't pick up hockey players when they get traded.
Okay.
He picked me up at the Winnipeg airport, and he said, Laurie, he said, listen, don't worry about, I'm good with that religion stuff. He said, I just want you to play hockey. I said, thanks, John. I'll do both. And it just turned into a pretty good marriage for both of us.
That's awesome. So you played in Edmonton for a couple of years, and you played in Winnipeg. We're going to talk about that for a sec. But Harold Ballard thought you'd be soft. How many penalty minutes did you end up with in your career?
I don't remember.
Oh, who we have an encyclopedia. I don't know if you're telling me the truth on that one, but we have an encyclopedia guy right here. I think Stevie knows.
Yeah, I checked Wikipedia. Now there's some debate on this. Some say 2,263. Some want to give you, maybe they want to give you one more minor, and they want to give you 2,265. So there's a tripping in there. I don't know what it is. It's kind of up for debate, but it's in the range.
Okay, well, you know what, Steve? The refs always picked on me. Okay.
Here we go.
I just want that for the record. Okay.
So let's go back to the drawing board of the all-time penalty minute leaders.
Yeah.
What number on the all-time NHL penalty minute leaders are you? Do you know that?
I don't, but one thing I do know, because, and it wasn't my kids who told me, because my 3 boys, to your kids, you're just dad, right? You're no big deal, which is great, and I love that. But somebody had told me when I retired that I was in the top 10. So, I mean, that's quite a few years ago. I've been out for 27 years. So I've dropped considerably. So
you're number 36, we believe, on the list. And just ahead of you, do you have the list there, Stevie?
I got it here somewhere. Yeah, I can dig it up. There's
there's you know who the number one is.
Yeah, Tiger Williams. Yeah, Tiger, and then I think Dale Hunter is next. And Dale Hunter was a heck of a player. You know, the general manager and coach for the London Knights. But he was a great player. But he was feisty and tough, and you know, he wasn't sort of a big fighter. But he was he was an effective player.
Who's the toughest guy you had to play against?
That's a real tough one, Bruce, because back in our day, you have to remember the game is different than today. And I love the way the game is played today. It's fast. Nobody can hook. You can't, defensemen can't cross check you in front of the net like they used to back in the day. And there was so many tough players, whether that be a sort of a Bob Probert or, like every era will talk about the toughness, but like Terry O'Reilly, Tiger Williams. I mean, those guys were like tough players, like, Danny Maloney, who passed away recently. Like I played with Danny in Toronto. Those guys were tough. Like, Paul Holmgren, Dave Schultz, man, those guys just stand back and throw, haymakers, right? And they were just, and like Jeff Odgers, and just, you can go down the list. There was so many players. Every team had 2 or 3 guys that were genuine tough.
And you combined your game. How would you describe your game? Because when I look, there's a toughness, but you had some success around the net too. And
well, yeah, you know what? Like you have to remember though, like again, back in our day, there was a lot more intimidation. There was like when I first broke in, Bruce, if you and I were fighting, and Bob and Steve were on the ice, they would drop their gloves too and square off with one another. So the 2 that would fight, the other 8 on the ice would drop their gloves and square off. And then in the early 80s, they changed that because there was so many bench clearing brawls and stuff during those, the Philly years, the Broad Street Bullies and stuff, which was on the Spectrum was on Broad Street in Philadelphia. And of course they used that technique very effectively. Like they were like a pack of wolves, right? With Bobby Clark and Bobby was, like he wasn't fighting tough, but he was, a diabetic, and he was, hardworking, hated to lose. And, I'm not sure he was, he certainly couldn't fight like some of those guys, but he didn't need to because he just get things going. And they had all kinds of guys.
He hated the dentist too, did he not?
What's that?
He hated the dentist too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah.
And a few So let me ask you this: like you had lots of penalty minutes, scored lots. Did it ever come out on the ice about your faith? Did people trash talk you on the ice?
All the time? Yeah, absolutely.
What kind of things they say?
Oh, they call me hypocrite, Bible thumper. Boschman, you tear a few pages out of your Bible, or go read the Bible, or all kinds of stuff. All kinds of that stuff, which it never bothered me and stuff like that. Like you used to hear, like, I don't know if there's more or less, if you would, trash talking today. I think there's probably more today, but back in the day, if you got up 3 goals on a team, you didn't want to run up the score because you knew you'd be fighting the rest of the third period or the second and third. So you kind of tempered things a little bit, and you just didn't want to get, didn't want to embarrass that team too much, or else you'd have like whoever you were playing, right?
So let me ask you this: how do you reconcile? And I mean, I've heard Tim Burke say once that if Jesus were playing baseball, he'd be throwing at the guy's head sometimes, playing aggressive, right, and taking the guy out at second base. How do you reconcile being a faith, playing aggressive?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. People, I used to get asked throughout the course of my career, and of course after my career, people would say, how can you call yourself a Christian, Laurie, and play the way you did? Like I didn't mind fighting. Now I wasn't, a fighter. Like I wasn't noted as a tough guy. I was noted as someone who wasn't afraid to fight, and I was noted as a real competitor. So I would never use scripture to say, because I think sometimes as Christians you can cherry pick verses of scripture to sort of back certain positions, and I would never do that. But I played hard. I loved the Lord, and part of the thing is in the rules of hockey, still allow fighting. and it's 5 minutes for fighting, and these kinds of things. So they have rules within the game, and if you break those rules, well, then you spend time in the penalty box. And I used to say it's no different than, when you finish this podcast, if you jump on the on the 401, and the 401 says it's 100 kilometers, but maybe you might go 110, maybe you might go 112. You're going a little bit more than the speed limit, so you're taking a bit of a chance by breaking that speed limit. That the fact, it's not that you want to run your truck or car down there as fast as you can, but that there's certain rules, and that if you break the rules, you're going to get a ticket, or you're going to spend time in the penalty box. In hockey, if what the coaches have at their disposal is they cannot play you as much, and they can sit you on the bench. And as an athlete, you want to get out there, you want to compete, you want to be part of the whole process. So as a Christian, I'd say, look, I really do love Jesus, but I also love to compete. And as a Christian, within the rules of the game of hockey, they allow for fighting, and I am not afraid to fight, and I'm not afraid to battle hard against someone. And a lot of times when I'm battling for the puck in the corner, and Bob and I are battling for that puck, I'm not thinking, what would Jesus do when I go in the corner? I'm thinking about how I can get that, how I can separate Bob from the puck.
You
and
have
get
to watch
it
Bob in the corner.
and pass it to Steve.
Yeah. It's pretty bad when he gets in there.
I heard he's probably the best skater on this
That's
podcast.
right, on this podcast.
Yeah, so I wanted to make sure.
And I just want to say, once you're a competitor, I will say this now, I've had the privilege of being a chaplain with the Belleville Centers, and this year I'm doing we're doing it together. Laurie and I are doing it together with Ottawa and Belleville, and we do a little thing called trivia in our chapel time, and Laurie plays along in trivia, and I will say you're aggressive and wanting to win in trivia, just like you won the first week, and then you lost the next week,
and then I had a mini slump, and then what happened the third week, Bruce?
I just want to talk about the second week.
Like I don't want to I don't want to brag or anything, like, really, Bruce. Okay.
Oh,
okay.
At the second week you did lose, and you called me the next day, and you were protesting some of the questions that were
you guys. Okay, Bob and Steve, the questions were from like this, this magazine that no one has ever heard of.
It's the Hockey News.
It's the Hockey News. No. I don't know.
People
I think it was the
of
Belleville News, put out by I don't know, somebody in Pickering County or something.
A guy named Cork Hanna that puts out the Belleville News all the time. So you gotta keep your eye.
Yeah, it was right. That's who it was, Steve. I think it was Cork Hanna. The stuff was like way out. Like, oh my goodness.
So let me ask this: now that you've been working with Hockey Ministries for a number of years. You've been working with the Ottawa Senators in the chaplaincy role with Hockey Ministries, but you're also the alumni president with the. You sure you don't have the COVID? I saw you cough there. You've also been helping coordinate NHL chapels. How many teams in the NHL have a chapel leader or have a chapel presence within their organization?
We have 25 out of 31 teams that have an active chapel program. And of course, like everybody else and like everything during this pandemic, we are
trying to find unique ways.
We really can't. The only unique way is what we're doing now is Zoom. That's really the only way. Now there are some U.S. states that are opening up a little bit, allowing people into the buildings and stuff like that. But of course, that's not happening up here with the 7 Canadian teams.
Well, we just saw tonight, and the Toronto Blue Jays are playing in Texas Rangers, their brand new stadium. Exactly. I actually checked tonight; it's wide open, and there's some tickets still available, but it's not a ton of tickets. You can actually go; they're going to sell to capacity. Would you go to a game at capacity in COVID times, Laurie Boschman?
Yeah, you know what? I have to tell you, I would. It doesn't like I support, like, I got a call a couple of weeks ago from a friend actually to go to Kingston because I turned 60 last summer, and for those 60 or older could get there was room at one of the drugstores to get the AstraZeneca shot. And, I just said to our friends, Tony and Marine, I said, I'm not interested right now. So here's the thing. I certainly don't have a problem. I'm not an anti-vaxxer or anything like that. I do a lot of traveling. I jump on planes lots. Of course, I haven't been on a plane in a year. if the airlines require me to get a vaccination, of course I'm going to get a vaccination. But up until that point, I'm going to take my chances. I know over 36 people now. One of our neighbors, Allison, has it as well. And I know out of those 36 people, they are from ages 15 to 73. And all of them had various symptoms, not all the symptoms, but various symptoms that you read in the news: lethargy to sweating to loss of appetite, those kinds of things. But everybody is fine. And I talked to Allison yesterday. We were in Toronto for a couple of days seeing some of our kids and grandkids, and we came back and I saw Allison, and she's been kind of socked out for a week, but she's starting to feel better. And so all that to say is, we have two nurses that live across the street. I talk to them all the time, and at two hospitals here in town, just to ask them, hey, and so I think I'm going to take my chances with it, because I believe it's more like, if you don't have any underlying conditions and stuff, I think you're going to be just fine from what I understand and what I read. But here's the other thing too. I believe that as a Christian, that there's an appointed time for me to die. That's what the Bible says.
Yep.
And God knows that. And I'm not trying to be reckless or foolish or anything like that. But if I would, if Canadian Tire Center opens up and allows fans to come in, which they're not going to till likely the fall, hopefully the fall.
Yeah.
Will I go to a game? Will my wife and I go to a game? Absolutely, we would.
That's awesome. I'll be there too. So let's talk to expand COVID, what's been happening with Zooms. You've been actually doing a Zoom with some NHL alumni guys.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Just what's happening?
I can, yeah. We started it actually like in March 2020, and we've done about, we've had it bi-monthly, so twice a week, and we have anywhere from 34 to 72 players on. And wow. I won't, just for confidentiality, I won't mention names and stuff, but there's people of faith who are former NHL hockey players, and some who are just curious, and they're friends of some of us who we've invited to come on the call and check it out. And so basically it's about an hour long, and we usually have somebody would interview one of the players. So one player interviewing another player. And we have somebody else would be talking a little bit about what, faith and hockey, what that looks like, a little bit about their career. And then we have a prayer time at the end, because there's lots, of course, to bring before the Lord.
Do you have trivia in those games too? Do you have trivia in those?
We do not have trivia. No, okay. We don't have time, because it goes by so fast. So usually when we have two people interviewing, it usually takes anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes, and they try and keep it within that time frame.
Oh, there you go. I interviewed Mark Osborne before. I don't know if you ever heard it. I'm just going to play a segment of his, because I interviewed him. Here's his interview.
I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal.
Really?
People know me.
That wasn't him, but
that sounds like Ozzy. Yeah, that sounds like Ozzy.
Well, we're gonna try and get him on the show. He'll send me texts from time to time when Montreal's doing bad. Now he's working for LA.
He's a scout for LA Kings. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's working with a local guy here, and so he'll send me texts all the time, and he's got a dry, very competitive nature about him.
Oh yeah, and he loves to golf. Okay, and I hate golf. Okay, so I tease Ozzy all the time and stuff. Ozzy and Paul Henderson, Mike Gartner, Wes Jarvis, they love golfing. They golf a lot. Well, Henny's not golfing so much because of his blood cancer, but when it does warm up, he'll get out and socially distance and golf because he loves it.
That's awesome. So in closing, we just want to ask, we're talking to young kids who are coming up, and what's the biggest challenge you see for youth of today who want to live out their faith and play sport? How do they reconcile that?
Well, those are two big questions, because obviously the cost of sports is I'm talking hockey in particular. Hockey is very expensive, and everybody knows that, from registration to all the equipment. And then, of course, if you're on a travel team or anything like that, and then, of course, for those who are trying to live out that faith, I mean, those are challenges, of course. we always encourage young people through our hockey camps, and we have hockey camps through Hockey Ministries. Outside of, say, COVID, last year we had 34 camps in 8 countries, and we have about 2,000 young boys and girls aged 9 through 17. And Steve had told me before we came on that his folks had been involved with the one in Calgary with the Basson family for a number of years. Yep. And so Hockey Ministries has been doing hockey camps for 44 years. And I just finished, not last summer because I didn't do a camp last summer, but I've done 34 years of camps with Hockey Ministries. And we try and encourage young people to, try and get connected with somebody else, either on your hockey team or outside your hockey team, with a youth group that can encourage you, because we all need that encouragement. We need encouragement in our faith, because sometimes there's lots of challenges and there's lots of temptation, and there's, it's really hard for young people when you're left out of the loop, because and I say this in the right way, because you might not want to do some things. And I could tell you all kinds of stories about that, but and sometimes for young people, it takes a while for that faith to become a reality in their lives. And so, along with having supportive parents that are there to support and guide and help and talk through some things, we encourage young people in their faith to get connected with a youth group, get connected with somebody who's your age, or somebody older, like a group, like a Bruce Mackey, or somebody who you
would I be considered a fossil?
You would, yes, yeah, you would be now, yeah. To your kids, you would, you definitely would, Bruce. Yeah. Okay, I have to say that. Okay,
I know that. Oh, well, listen.
I tell you guys, there's so many funny stories, but my first wife, Nancy, passed away. She passed away 14 years ago, and we have three boys. And when we were raising our kids, we always encouraged them and strongly encouraged them: education, because that's the way it is. Now, for myself, I got grade 12 out west. I finished grade 12, and the next year I was playing for the Leafs. So when my kids were growing up, it was always education. So 12 years ago, I remarried, and so I have 3 step kids. So between us, between my first wife and my wife now, Andrea, we have 6 kids. We have 8, soon to be 9 grandkids. And so all of my kids, my 3 boys and my 3 step kids and Andrea, they all have post-secondary education. So about 4 years ago, my youngest boy, who's 27 years old, he's a strength coach for a Division I team down in Virginia. Actually, just moved to another school in Kentucky. So he's home, and we're all home together for Christmas, and we're sitting around the table and stuff like that. And we're chatting and having a good time and stuff like that. And there was a lull in the conversation, and my youngest boy goes, "Who around the table has the least education?" Well, everybody, of course, broke up, just dying laughing, because everybody knew that, your old dad or the stepdad only got grade 12, so after the laughter died down, I interjected and said, "Who around the table has the most money?" And
there you go.
That just put it to rest. But I still maintain, obviously today, you have to, education is very important, because it's
right.
It's not everything, but it's pretty important. But
so my pastor says money isn't everything, but it sure keeps the kids in touch. That's what he says. Well, listen, we run out of time, but I want to thank you, Laurie. It's gone already, but I want to thank you for joining us today. And we wish you all the best. Thanks for sharing your heart and your faith. And actually, though, I didn't ask you this one last question. Ottawa this week, did they not beat Calgary? Not once, but twice?
Oh, Steve, that's a sore point, isn't it? Oh, that hurts.
We're going full Leaf. We're playing for next year. That's what we're doing out here.
And their coach now, I think this is his 3rd or 4th time out there. One of the Sutter boys. Did you play against
the 3rd or 4th brother? I think we got coaching for us too.
I did.
Did you play against Daryl?
I did, yeah. Yeah, I played I played against the 6. Like Brian was the oldest, and he was played with Bernie Fedorko and Wayne Babbage in St. Louis, and they were the a top line, and Brian was such a good player and tough as nails, and he really set the stage for them all. And I had forgot how many. Bruce had this on a trivia here, and one of the trivias we did, and I forgot that there were 6 of them that played in the NHL, and Ronnie and Rich were the 2 youngest brothers, but their oldest brother, I think his name is Gary.
Yeah.
And Gary is the one who stayed on the farm and that. And I mentioned the fact that I was reading in the newspaper several years ago that Gary and some friends, some other farmers, they won the lottery in Alberta. So it's kind of like, it was just kind of very interesting. 6 played in the NHL and the other one wins the lottery. That's not bad.
That's awesome. Well, Stevie's cheering a bit for Calgary, but yeah, not too much anymore, right?
I'm trying to keep the faithful, the spirits up here, but it's a little rough in Cowtown this week. So.
It is. Oh, especially when you look down the road there and you see Edmonton lighting it up there.
Oh, well,
that's gotta hurt, eh?
The Battle of Alberta has been a bit of a one-sided affair for the last decade and a half. So we figure after 18 first-round draft picks, we figure we give them a few games on us. So that's how it works.
Well, listen, thanks for being with us tonight, Laurie. For the Edge of Tom Foolery, my name is Bruce Mackey.
I'm Bob Morris.
I'm Steve Height.
Thanks for tuning in, folks. We'll see you next week.